you doing? Hey, so we're here to talk about a video about Radarr. Pretty simple to the point. The one thing I recommend for Radarr is that any programs that you're going to have correlate with it, I would have those deploy along with installation. So if you know you're going to tag NZBGET or rTorrent, or you're going to deploy what's some other stuff like NZB Hydra, have those just deploy with it. And the reason for that is because you want to have both open, follow the wiki or this video, and then kind of test. So we're going to go ahead and launch it. Relatively simple to do. And again, if you don't launch the programs, you do it later, it's fine. You just got to open it up and then just kind of deploy it. It'll only take a few seconds of your life. So Radarr right now is the only program that doesn't have the new pretty interface like Sonar version 3 and Lidarr does. You can thank Lidarr for kind of pushing first. Radarr is still in the preview mode, but it works generally well, and I like it. So there we go right there. So right here, I'm just gonna refresh it. Yep. Okay, so this is pretty much like a brand new install of this. So let me just go ahead and bring this over. All right. Here. Just for anything, because we're gonna have the wiki. We're basically gonna have the wiki up. And we're just going to kind of go through it. So one thing I do want to mention is that for Radarr, the general path should be Mount Union FS Movies. Now you can create another folder, but we just recommend for you to stick with this. A lot of people who are new just decide to go like, I want to call it 4K Fancy, or I want to call it My Movies, right? In the end, it really doesn't matter. If you focus it on this and then you end up with a lot of content, you're not going to care about creating 80,000 different divisions. It's actually going to drive you mad. So imagine like, what's the best way to put it? I don't know. I don't have baseball cards, but I don't know, Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards, whatever. Imagine you had like 80,000 cards and you try to segregate them by like 20,000 different categories. Eventually it's going to drive you nuts. So best to just keep it like this, where you have the permissions working for you. Everything's chain modded. If you create your own folders and your permissions are wrong, you're going to have issues and your files aren't going to move. And trust me, you're probably going to be one of the first ones on the forum saying, hey, my files aren't moving. You failed to mention that you created a custom folder to put stuff in. And the reason for it is because the permissions don't work. So just kind of giving you a word of warning. If you already have your stuff set up and it's working great for you, that's awesome. So right now, the first thing we're going to do, and it's the first thing that I always do, is I go to settings and I always turn on the advanced view. So if you fail to turn this on, basically, there will be sometimes you'll miss things, so make sure you have this turned on. And there's pretty much a few key steps. So right now this is general configuration. This has nothing to do with the torrent or the newsgroup side. This is something that you need to configure for both. If you don't, again, you'll have files that'll be stuck or missing or not moving the way you want it to. So the first thing you want to do is rename movies. It's a bad day when you kind of kick off this program and forget to turn this on, because then all your movies are going to be in a crazy format. Me personally, I just leave it like this. But like I said, Sub 7 and some other people, they like to get fancy with their title layouts. It might be great for scanning purposes. So you can leave it as is and you'll be fine, or you can copy this. So if you could decide to copy this, you just copy and paste it as in the picture. You're going to paste it to number 3. So, and then I personally have this on as delete, but recommended for by some users is to have replaced with space dash. So it's really up to you at the end how you want this format to be. Scrolling down, you don't have to do much here. I personally always have this off, but you can turn it on. It's probably recommended to turn it on, because if you have everything set up via the G drive, T drive, you're not dealing with traditional hard disks, so you're not going to run into issues with space. File management, you're going to come downward, and then you're going to set analyze videos to no. Make sure you turn this off, because if you forget, Radarr will really analyze those videos, meaning from the beginning to end, and that's going to tax your server. It's going to require downloading the movie. It's just going to waste a lot of your time. And again, it increased the API calls to Google Drive. So make sure you have it turned off, and you should be good to go on that. We also have people who, it's very possible to trigger the Plex API ban if you have to analyze videos on both Sonar, Radarr, and Lidarr, and then some other things that you're doing. Because once you hit that ban, it could take a little while to clear up. So that's pretty much it. You don't have to mess with this. You don't have to do anything else. But again, it's up to you if you want to do additional things. But just be aware that sometimes custom preferences have consequences. So that was pretty easy to do. So right now we're going to configure this for news groups. This is generally what I use because it just makes automations a lot easier. Some people use the torrents because that's what they're familiar with. I was a big torrent guy, and then I switched over to news groups because of the automation simplicity and not requiring seeding. And then be aware that you don't need a VPN with this, so it kind of makes it easy. Just set it up and call it a day. So the first thing we're looking at here is getting to it. So if you're going to set it up, you're going to go to indexers, and then you're going to hit the plus picture. And then because we're doing news groups, it's going to be focused on this area. So 99% of your news groups, most likely you're going to pick one of these. So there's a preset list, as you can see in this picture right here, of ones that you could pick, right? So it makes it pretty simple to enter stuff. So if, like, for example, if you got NZB Planet, you can go ahead and type your API key, and whenever you're done, you hit test and you hit save. So right now this is not going to work because this is not valid, but that's all you really have to do in order to get it to work. You just put in the proper API key and you're done. Just be aware that if you run several servers, be aware that it's not a great idea to put it on more than 2. I don't personally run it on more than 1 because they may filter it and it pisses them off. They may also see it as being a shared account. I know what happens because I've seen it a long time ago. So that's pretty easy to do right there once you set it up. And you can see per the picture, you're just putting your API key in. I put a word of warning with NZBGET, and they thought I wasn't kidding about it, but it is true. But these guys will automatically, if they see that you're pulling too much, they will lock your account. We'll give them the courtesies and saying that they sent emails, but when you get automated emails from NZBGET, it usually gets put in the spam. I mean, not NZBGET, NZBGeek. And then they question why you're doing this. So they say, hey, people are scraping my site. I understand that, but if you're going to offer unlimited, and that's basically it, you shouldn't have this problem. So they will cut you off. So be careful with NZBGeek. Even though they're cheap in price, they will stop your account. One group that I've been thoroughly impressed with is NZB Planet. I've used them for 3 years. Then they're unlimited. Have not seen any stops, cuts, or anything. So I think it was like 50 pounds, like 50 British pounds or something like that. But they were well worth it for a lifetime. So that's why I appreciate them. Okay. So you can add indexers that way, or you can use NZB Hydra. So NZB Hydra is something I really haven't used, but maybe I should have been using it. And I got to thank some people for doing it. So in order, one, I just always had connection problems with it. And then 2, I didn't fully understand the main grasp. But think of NZB Hydra is like consolidating all your indexers together and putting certain limits and certain things in place so you don't have any issues, right? So if you tell NZB Hydra that one of your indexers only has 2,000 API calls a day, then you can set it to that, and then it prevents from causing problems, like with NZBGeek. So because they're like, hey, it's like, I think they were thinking like it was like we're like pulling so much stuff. It's like as though we're running our own indexer site based off them. It was kind of funny. But NZB Hydra may have saved some of this headache. The great thing in order to connect to it is that all you need to do is deploy NZB Hydra, so make sure you have it done first, and put in this address. But something I did not know going through the wiki process, because you kind of read stuff from other things, and you need to have one indexer already deployed in NZB Hydra. So if you don't have an indexer in there and you attempt to connect to it, it will fail. To me, it didn't make any logical sense because I was thinking like, hey, I'm testing this connection to that connection. NZB Hydra will just outright fail on you. So you will not know if it works until you put one valid indexer in NZB Hydra. Trust me, it took me like 30 minutes to figure it out. And it still didn't make any sense because if you deployed other programs that do test connections to each other, you don't run into this problem. So just a word of advice for you. So when you set it up, it's pretty easy, just like the other stuff. So you're going to go to News Nav, and then you're going to go to Custom, or you can actually click it itself. It'll do the same thing. So you could type certain things in there. So you could type NZB Hydra, and then you're going to type the URL. So if you follow this right here, it's the HTTP NZB Hydra 5076. You put that in there, and then you're going to put the API key. NZB Hydra will actually have the URL for you. So you're going to, again, take the NZB Hydra's API key and pop it in here. Once you do that, you hit test, you hit save, and you call it a day. And then if you're going to add any more indexers, I would, because if you already got NZB Hydra deployed, add them all there. Don't kind of go back and forth on both. I have one user who did that and it kind of confused us and he was having problems. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here. So we're not, like I said, I'm not really actually setting it up, but I just want to show you. Okay, setting up a downloader, download client. So you have two options. You have SABNZBD or NZBGET. I was a big Zab person, but I switched over to NZBGET after a while. And the reason for it is because if you start obtaining a lot of content, definitely if you start using the Google GC edition, you'll start to notice like how well NZBGET handles large amounts of processing. Zab is pretty good for the pretty user interface, and that's probably the reason why I went to it the first time. But I would highly encourage NZBGET. It's not as pretty, but it gets to the point. So all you have to do is click NZBGET here, and then you just put in your basic information. Put in a name. Let's scroll down here. So you're going to put in NZBGET, and then you're going to put in NZBGET again, 6789. And then what you're going to do is you're going to put a username and password if you have one. If you do not have one, leave those blank. And then the category, this is the one that will get you quick. It needs to be lowercase, so it needs to be movies, all lowercase. And then you can set your priorities here if you want. Test, and then hit save. So again, just keep it all lowercase. That's what's recommended. And then again, by default out of the box, this will be blank, unless you specifically set one. If you use PG Shield, like I said, it's going to give you a layer of protection, so you really don't need it, but it doesn't help to put an extra password on top of the program that you're already running. So once you're done with that, you'll hit save and we'll exit here. SABNZBD, same process. The only difference with SABNZBD is it requires an API key. So you can see that right here, we've pulled one. So we typed in the same information. So yeah, I was violating my own rule here. So it doesn't really matter what you type in the name. It's just for identification. But it's the same thing. You got to put in SABNZBD. Do not do localhost 127 per the wiki. Put in 8080 and then put in the API key. So you're going to have to go to SABNZBD, open it up, and then it'll give you the API key. And same thing, if you set a username and password, put that in there. Make sure that the movies is all lowercase, and then set this if you really want to. Test and connect. And once you're done, you hit exit and save. So you're like, oh, okay, that's it, right? I'm good to go. Well, you also need to pay attention to some other settings here. So you got to make sure that the shown is there, because what happens is that if you don't do that, you're going to wonder where everything's at. So you notice remote mappings down here, and you notice this stuff here. I think if we take this off, yeah, you see how like half your options disappeared. So by default, if you have these already lined up, by default it does. You can leave it alone. What you need, the reason you need this is because for this bottom piece, the remote path mappings. So what MergerFS does, it allows you, along with how everything's configured, is that it will directly rename your files without re-downloading them. So if you choose to not set this piece up, everything will work, but except every time, like let's say, a TV show or some other video content uploads and then Sonar or Radarr needs to rename them, it will download the entire file, rename it, and then upload it again. Not really good for you because it's a bandwidth waster. Files move around. Plex gets maybe a little bit confused. It does catch on, but just to give you some FYI. The remote mappings piece is really easy to set. So what I did was I kind of segregated, because I noticed that in LiDAR, Radarr, and Sonar being split along with the torrents and the Usenet, it'll get a little confusing on what you're doing. So I just kind of put it in one place because you're going to set it up in each situation. So right now you can tell that we're setting it up in Radarr. So here's an example of what you would type for remote mapping. So we're going to click this. So you're going to type exactly that. So you're like, let's say you're using NZBGET, you're going to type NZBGET, and then you're going to type this path exactly as is. So you're going to put downloads and then Union FS right there. So, oh, looks like I have a typo. Good catch. Looks like I have downloads here. See, I was repeating them. So I'll make sure to fix that before mass replicating. But yeah, that's good. This example is here. So do mount Union FS NZBGET. So like this, and then like that. And then I personally haven't done this, but there's a note here in case you're wanting to set up stuff on different servers. And that is pretty much it for that. So that's pretty simple for that piece. So I'm gonna go back. Okay, so now connect Plex to auto scan. If you click here, we basically have instructions for you. So setting up via Radarr. And the reason is because, again, Radarr and Sonar will have two different views because Radarr is not caught up yet. But basically, you'll go to connect. So let's go to connect. And then we're going to go ahead and hit plus. And then you're going to do Plex server. Do not do Plex home theater or Plex media center. It needs to be server. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fill in this information. See? So you're going to type in Plex. It's all lowercase. Make sure all this lines up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to type in Plex here, port 32400, your username and your password to Plex. Then you're going to hit test, and then you're going to hit save. And that's really it for that. So you're going to hit save and call it a day. So we're going to back out of that. And here's some awesome news groups that you can use. And that would be pretty much it for that portion. Now, if you're doing torrents, it's basically going to be the same kind of indirect setup, but you're going to, instead of using NZB Hydra, you're going to use Jackett. You're going to use Jackett. You're going to make sure to click it to kind of understand how it all works. And this is the reason, like I said, torrenting can take a little bit more work, but I understand why people do it. I always tell people, it's like, hey, just make some Plex friends and you don't have to worry about chasing every little file. But, you know, sometimes you guys are in a situation where, you know, you're running for your family or friends or, you know, yourself, and you just need that complete connection. So go to Jackett, make sure to follow these instructions, and then link everything up. So, because you're going to type newsnab, paste in URL, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you'll set up Jackett. And then you'll put in that information in right there. That's what that is. So you're going to type Jackett. You're going to put the URL. So this comes from Jackett. So you're not going to type this yourself. Understand that you have to put it, you have to set up. So you can see right here, this is what IPv torrents. So once you set it up in Jackett, then you'll get this link. I was very confused at first when I went to Jackett. I'm like, oh, this is just a general link. And then I pop in and stuff. No, make sure you put in the link first and then you pop it in. So there's your URL. And then you're going to type your API path, which is, I believe, not this one. Nope, because this is version 2. And then you're going to put in your API key. So that's pretty much it. Next, you're going to set up your downloader. So you're going to go to download client. You're going to hit plus. And it's going to be the same deal. You know, make sure the advance is shown. And then here's your different ones. Deluge, uTorrent, and Qubit torrent. So right there. Right now, we just have instructions for rTorrent, but it should almost be generally the same. We'll make sure to test it and amend this wiki for you. But I personally tested everything here. So if you go to rTorrent, or rTorrent in this case, you're going to type in rTorrent, label it, you know, do the same thing. You're going to change this localhost out, type rTorrent, and then you're going to put 80. And then you're going to have RPC2, which is good. You're going to put a username and password if you have one set. Here, you're going to call it TV Radarr. So don't forget to do that. If you have the categories wrong, again, you'll get bad stuck files. So just make sure you set that up. And then you can set up your priorities here if you want. So this is generally good. I would just leave it as that. And then you can say to start automatically downloading files. I personally would, unless you're one to micromanage everything. And then you're going to hit save. So we're going to go ahead and exit out of this. I know it's I'm getting tired from it. Okay, so advanced settings, so same thing. So it's going to be the same thing like what we talked about earlier in the news groups. It will be the exact same thing. So you're going to go to your, yep, this is the same thing down here. So you're going to make sure that these line up. By default, you're good. You're going to set up your remote mappings, follow instructions there. Set up the Plex auto scan as we showed earlier, and then poof, your money, you're good to go. So in general, this should be the same for Sonar and Lidarr. Sonar and Lidarr have the new interface, so there's nothing too different, but it's kind of good to kind of review the steps just in case anything's reviewed. So other than that, hope you like the information, the video. Please feel free to donate. Please feel free to view the forums, be a membership, partner, help others. So again, we appreciate your time and thanks for watching the video. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help us a lot. Have a good one.